Nigeria's Council on Privatization will meet today to approve the preferred bidders for the 5 generation and 10 distribution companies created from the unbundling of the Power Holding Company of Nigeria. And of course, there's a resurgence of an appetite for risk in Nigeria right now as our equity market continues to move. It's up over 29% year to date. Joining me in the studio for his perspective on the best investment ideas in the market right now is Victor Inyang. He's the Chief Investment Officer at Mansard Investments. Victor, it's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much.
First of all, like I did say, there seems to be an increasing appetite for risk. I want to get your perspective as an institutional investor. A lot of people still are asking for you guys to come more to the table, that many of you are sitting on the sidelines. But how do you feel about the markets today?
I feel quite positive about the equity markets. The stock market has rallied quite strongly, as you just said, 30% thereabouts on a year-to-date basis.
Right.
And that's quite good. And I think actually the big question now is it sustainable?
Right.
Where do we go from here as we run up to the end of the year?
And what are your key considerations there in terms of the sustainability of this move?
Absolutely. My key considerations in terms of the sustainability is to really take a step back and look at the macroeconomic fundamentals.
Right.
I think that, first of all, in a country like Nigeria, the first thing you look at is the oil price. And with Bonny Light crude at $112 a barrel, that's a great supportive factor. And
Sure.
The key rule of thumb is anything over $100 is good for Nigeria.
Yeah.
We're seeing our foreign reserves at $42.273 billion at a 32-month high. You have to go back as far as February 2010 to see, foreign exchange revenues, foreign exchange reserves at those levels. The currency as well is a key consideration. You know that our market is, huge amounts of foreign flows are coming into our markets. And at 157.3 or thereabouts, naira per dollar, we're seeing the currency strengthening. Yeah. So that's a good thing. The other factors as well, inflation at the print for September, year on year was 11.3. That was the third monthly decline in inflation. And in fact, 11.3% year on year inflation is the lowest inflation monthly year on year figure.
So it sounds like all positive factors. In other words, you're happy with the story right now?
I am. There's a couple of more things actually. GDP is looking good. We saw GDP coming in at 6.2%, 6.28% for Q2. That was a decline from 7.61 on a quarter-on-quarter of, Q2 2011.
Right.
But that's still quite a decent figure. We're seeing IMF downgrading GDP growth estimates across the world. And a couple of other factors, well, it's quite interesting. Last year, we closed GDP at 7.2% for the whole year, 2011, and that ranked us 22nd in the world of growing economies. The 6.2% that we got for second quarter actually ranks us 15th for all.
So you think that story is something that's going to continue to attract investors? And in terms of allocating across the world, Nigeria will probably get some
I believe so. We're seeing, of course, with all of the quantitative easing programs we're seeing around the world and low interest rate regimes for a lot of the developed countries, that's stoking a lot of portfolio inflows to Nigeria. And I think our macro, and so that's really why the macro story is very key, because it's supportive.
All right, so let's move on to some of your best investment ideas right now. I mean, I saw a few notes that you made about the banks. It seems that you are still very focused on the banks. You think the opportunity is gone for the consumer stocks, or why such a strong focus on the banks?
Well, there's such a strong focus on the banks because, even the banks have rallied quite strongly, on a year-to-date basis.
Yeah, they're up over 40%.
Absolutely, and that's just probably for GT Bank. The others have gone up. UBA has gone up about 80%, Diamond a lot more.
Right.
But the valuation story is just so compelling. If I look at UBA, of course, the underlying story is improved asset quality and reduced loan loss provisions.
Right.
But UBA, the third quarter figures that we're seeing from the likes of UBA, Diamond, the banks really in general, is just so great. And if you just add on a little bit more, just even being conservative to come up with final year figures.
Yeah.
The valuations are really, really good. I mean, you're seeing return on equities in the range of, 20% for a number of these, companies. And, price to book ratios, PE ratios sitting around 3, 4 or 5%. Price to book
That's on the
0.75.
forward earnings multiple, I guess.
I'm just looking even at, I'm just
the current 12 months.
Exactly, the current 12 months. I'm just a bog standard fund manager. I don't need to get too technical.
Yeah.
So it's looking very good.
Okay, and then I think another very important point you also made is the dividend yields. Dividend yields for many of these banks are very attractive.
Absolutely.
Especially when you look at it in context of where yields are across the world.
Exactly. In fact, that is really the clincher for me.
Right.
For UBA, I'm looking at a dividend yield of around about 18%. For Diamond, same. Skybank a bit lower, 14%, and Access Bank, again a bit lower, or around 13%. So all of these things are very supportive. That's particularly in the context of a declining money market yields and bond yields. With the added prospect of capital appreciation as well on stocks. It's almost a no-brainer.
These stocks should move. And I think I totally agree. I think we're going to see another move, even though we've seen a very dramatic one over the last few months. But can you share a quick thought? And moving to the insurance space, ICO is a stock that was up 10% on Friday. Many people are beginning to talk about the insurance sector now as in the next opportunity after we've seen the move in the consumers and the banks. Your thoughts on that stock in particular?
Sure. ICO is an interesting stock, and in fact, the insurance sector is quite interesting all around. I just did a quick analysis on the insurance sector. Of the 32 stocks listed in the insurance sector, at least the prints that I got out, the price list that I got out, 23 were still sitting at 50 kobo. A further 4 were trading between 50 kobo and 60 kobo.
Right.
3 were trading between 60 kobo and 1 naira. And only two were trading above 1 naira. That was Mansard Insurance at 160 and Custodian Allied at 146.
Distressed valuations,
so it's
obviously.
Absolutely, totally distressed valuation. So for some people, it's a mixed bag. For some people, they think, well, the sector is battered and it's battered for a reason. And others see, great potential. As you just mentioned on Wednesday, ICO went up from 60 kobo to 66 kobo, 10%, in one day. And with the third quarter earnings about to be released, there's every prospect that that stock can do a lot more. We have seen there are a couple of things in that sector. First off, this year is going to be a challenging year for claims, from the perspective of claims. Yeah. So if you look at the figures from, the Q2 figures from ICO, the top line figures was up. Line figure was up around about 30% or so to 9.6 billion. But the PAT was only up about 7% to 1.488 billion. And one of the things that really took back, from the growth in the top line was a massive jump in claims. Right. That was up about 4.6 billion, and that was up about 80%.